We are now live. Happy Wednesday, everyone. We'll give it a couple minutes since Zoom lets attendees just sort of trickle in, but get comfortable, grab a water, coffee, tea. I don't know, BB, what are you drinking today?
I'm drinking lemon ginger tea to follow up my
Mm.
strong coffee.
Lovely. I've still got just a little bit of my coffee left, so I'll be going through that today. Looking good. Seeing our numbers jump up there. Welcome, everyone. So good to have you on this call today.
Hmm.
Thanks for taking a little bit of time out of your Wednesday and joining us. We've got something wonderful planned for you. Wonderful speaker. Lots of questions, so don't be shy about posting them in the Q&A, and we'll get to as many as we can.
Sixth day of the new year, Isabel. Pretty exciting. Holds a lot of
Yeah,
promise.
it does. It does. I'm sure. We're all January is going to be interesting this year
The
for
whole
sure.
year. It's a new year.
Yeah, it's kind of nice to have the slate not wiped clean, but a fresh start,
Yeah. Yeah.
signaling wonderful things.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. I see attendance slowing down just a little bit, so I might kick things off. I do have a bit of housekeeping before we dive into BB's presentation. So for our latecomers, you won't be missing anything except for me talking. But thank you so much for joining us today. Happy New Year and happy Wednesday. This is the first Wednesday of the month, and so we always gather together with one of our experts. And today we are very lucky to have BB Webb, who will be talking to us about different sales strategies. Um, this is our chance to sit down with our prospective members and ask and answer all kinds of questions. So anything, we had some great questions submitted before this kicked off, but please don't hesitate to drop them in the chat, or excuse me, the Q&A as well. And like I said earlier, we will get to as many of them as possible. But we're very lucky today to be joined by BB because not only is she XYPN's sales coach, but she comes from an entrepreneurship background as well. So she's intimately familiar with this journey. And we know it takes a lot, both personally and professionally, to come to this point. And so she has that background, she has that expertise, but also for the past couple of years, she's been working specifically with RIA owners. So now she adds that to her repertoire. And sales can sometimes get a bad rap, but BB's here to share all kinds of advice about what she's learned and really how to make the art and the nuance of sales as part of your expertise as a financial advisor. So get comfortable because we have BB for the next hour. We also have an upcoming webinar next February. Excuse me, not next month, February the 3rd. We'll be talking about marketing. So sales and marketing are the two perfect topics to kick off the new year. We'll have Audrey drop a link into the chat to get signed up for that. And without further ado, I think I'm going to turn it over to BB.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Isabel. And hi, everybody. Happy New Year. Exciting. I'm so delighted to be here and to have an opportunity to share some of the things that I've learned over the years that hopefully can be a benefit to your business. I want to give you a little short intro to my background and how it applies to what we're talking about today and how it really helped shape my thinking around consultative sales and how advisors might best frame how they can help others. I started my career as an artist in love with the creative process, though admittedly, it was challenging to make it sustainable and make a living. I went on later to start a business in Atlanta, which after 14 years I sold. I realized in growing that business that I needed systems, I needed policies, I needed protocols to make it successful and sustainable. And I admittedly made a boatload of errors. And it's frankly where I learned my best stuff. But I went on to write a book about everything that I learned to make it eventually a successful and profitable business. But like you, no doubt, um, many of you are changing from maybe working with big firms and going off on your own. And I decided to sell my business in 2016, and it only took 5 months, which was extraordinarily fast. And it was because I had a clear vision, I had systems in place, a clear culture that served as the backbone to the business, and 28 great employees who were running it actually. So I learned to create a commercial and profitable enterprise, just as you are working to do with your firm. My father was an entrepreneur, and he told me once during my arts days, when I was making very, very little money, he said, honey, money is not everything, but it does rank right up there with oxygen. And he was right. And I think of that all the time. So I moved to Bozeman to be near my two brothers, ready for a change. And I was doing some executive coaching work with small businesses. And then I found XYPN, and I found that, oh gosh, now I get to work with 1,350 plus savvy, smart advisors who are new at entrepreneurship. So just like you, I found my niche, my sweet spot in helping advisors in this new world of entrepreneurship. So welcome. I hope I can share some useful tips that will take you into the new year in a really positive way. So what we're talking about today is the art of advice. We're going to look at sales strategies for financial advisors. So let me just click here. The art and the science of sales. Let's talk about that for a moment. The science part to me is really having a process, a structure on how you engage with the people who need what you have to share. I'm going to share a process that I created for XYPN members. I found that many advisors were actually kind of winging it and didn't have a clear process and steps to guide them through a sales process to get to the close. And it was very inefficient. So I developed the XYPN 6-step sales process, all to be designed to be customizable, but clear steps to help advisors learn about their prospect while, very importantly, sharing what they have to offer, working toward a possible and frankly probable close. So it's really the science part is having a structure in place that's really serves you as you grow your business, even if you end up being a 1-person or maybe a 50-person firm, whatever is in your heart's desire. Because knowledge that's kept in your head, it can't easily be shared when you onboard new people into your company. And if the information is in an employee's head only, and then they decide to move on, or you let them go for some reason, that very expensive intellectual property walks out the door. I learned this the hard way for sure. So most importantly, systems create a consistency and an efficiency in your practice. I don't want you to take more time than you need to in a sales process because you want to be focusing on the financial planning to help people. But it creates an efficiency. And again, shortly, I'm going to share a little bit about the process I created. So that's the science part I want you to keep in mind as we go through today. The art part is listening and responding to what your prospect has to say with maybe stories of how you've helped others and relevant advice. And that's a key word, relevant advice, not just everything and anything, but relevant based on what their needs are. Kind of pulling it from your toolbox of knowledge to demonstrate, maybe a better word is to showcase your value as an advisor and how you could be the right choice for your prospect on what they need. And with a clear process, there's really no pressure when engaging with a prospect. You've set up what you outline as a best practice process. You get their buy-in early on to see if they are a fit for you and if you are a fit for them. So that's where it takes all the pressure out. A lot of us don't like the idea of sales because we've had pressure-filled sales tactics, which none of us like. And through this process, you have the opportunity to actually share your leadership skills as you outline the process and go through it and deliver, much as you'll be showcasing in your financial planning process. And importantly, a process saves time. It's efficient. And it can create a lot of excitement and not pressure, but a sense of urgency. Wow, I want to get going. This person understands me. I've shared what is important to me. We've gone into a level of detail, and he or she, as an advisor, has shared where their expertise in that is in that area and their excitement too. So the art and the science of sales, 2 things to consider. So let's go on to the next slide here. I wanted to share this. If you're a Michael Kitces follower, and I'm sure many of you are, this was in a tweet just the other day, and I thought it was just relevant to share today. I love this. He says, in the future, consumers won't just pick the best advisor in their area. They'll find the best advisor to solve problems anywhere. It's from Nerd's Eye View, kitces.com. So keeping in mind that as we sell, we're in a new world, not just the pandemic, but you could do your work anywhere. And a lot of you are or will be doing things virtually as you move forward, not just because of the pandemic. So it's getting really great at how do you communicate and stay tuned into that little camera right in front of you and engage with folks in whatever platform that you're using and to become very savvy at it. The playing, and I guess the key thing I wanted to take away too is that the playing field is really wide open right now. So that's very exciting from a sales perspective. You're not limited by area. So regarding the art of advice that we're talking about today, I want to cover three key areas. This is if you're working in person with people eventually or virtually, doesn't matter, but three key things that I want to cover. And the very first is we're going to go through three attributes to develop. Three attributes to develop. The next is knowing your role as an advisor and what your role is as a salesperson too, and your value. And we're going to clear up why a sales process. I really want to build a case on why, whether you take some of my ideas, there's lots of different processes out there that you can create or hone that fit your firm, but having one is really key. So let's get started with that. So if you take nothing away from my talk today, but to consider the three next points, I'll be really happy. Actually, I'd like you to take away more, but these three are really key. They're going to make a difference in your ability to connect with and serve your prospect and your client. And keep in mind, a lot of industries have consultants who are paid for sharing advice, much like you are paid for your advice. Not all do it well. And giving great advice is really a two-way street with the person that you're engaging with. You can't do it alone, but you are the guide to making it happen well. So, three attributes to develop a phenomenal financial advisor, guide, coach, pilot, whatever you call yourself, partner with a prospect or client, assuming, of course, that you already have tremendous skills in the field to which you're trained, and I'm sure you do, each with your own specialty in the financial planning arena that you choose. So drum roll, please. The very first is, I hear a drum roll. You've got to be curious. And I don't say that at all lightly. Look to find what is behind the actions and the words of your prospect or client when you're working with them. What's behind the curtain? Get really curious. What challenge or goal outside of the shoulds that people come in with you? Yes, I should do tax planning. I should look at my debt reduction. I should do some better investments, whatever it happens to be, should do my estate planning. How do you uncover carefully and tenderly, keyword, people come to you and to really get to the heart of things, they need to be vulnerable and to feel safe being vulnerable. And often people who are very astute in many other fields aren't in financial planning, and it can be challenging. It can make one feel very vulnerable. But getting behind the real desire that someone has that money will help provide. Be a private detective and look below the surface. So being curious is number one. And number two, you got to listen well. You know this. Allow for the pauses. Allow for the pauses. Hear what is said. Really hear it and listen to what is heard. There's a difference. Hear what is said and listen to what is heard. And thirdly, ask great questions. And this, you can develop a skill set over time. It took me a while to really get good at asking the right, good, creative questions to get to the heart of where folks were in my different businesses. But be empathic. Imagine you're in the prospect's shoes. Ask qualifying statements. Tell me more. Or repeat what you heard. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I heard you say, you're seriously looking for a way to transition from your job and start a concierge business to assist people working from home. How interesting. Tell me more. I'm interested to hear more. So, a way to build rapport and allow people to be vulnerable and to share so you can really apply what they need most to be able to get there. So being curious, listening well, and asking great questions. And the great thing is, when you are curious, when you listen well, and when you ask those great questions, you create an opportunity to relevantly, and that's a key word, relevantly share how you can uniquely help them. relevant to what's important to them. I can't tell you how often I hear advisors just sharing everything that they do, and that's not relevant. The person came in with this need, but you've got to really be curious and ask a lot of questions and do a lot of listening to find out what's important, so you can bring out of your toolbox just what's appropriate to them. So it is so customized. Your advice is customized because you've done those things well. You're showcasing throughout this process your value. You're sharing stories and how you've helped others in similar situations get to where they want to go in time, because we all know this, a change in your financial situation doesn't change overnight. It's a process. It's why we want to engage people over a long period of time, but we need to substantiate the cost or the investment, and why there is a greater cost in not engaging with you. And this also gives you an opportunity to highlight your differentiators. Why is a fee only advisor different from if I worked with Edward Jones or someone like that? Your niche, which is so important, your passion. So let's talk next about knowing your role. What is your role and your value? You as a leader, I'm talking about specifically, and you as an expert. You're the one sharing advice from your training and your experience. And I want you to consider, I've got 4 different ideas to share here. The first is replacing one S word with another S word, that you're there to serve over sell, that you're really looking to serve people, to help them get to their best lives through helping to manage their finances. So you have an opportunity when talking about serving, sharing your passion to serve, why you do what you do, why you went out on your own, why you chose your core niche group, why you're passionate about it, how you've helped others get past challenges and toward goals as you're serving them. So you can rehearse those sound bites about your passion to serve within your particular niche group, which I'd highly recommend niche, because it's really, niche is a key marketing channel. And many of you know this, certainly if you follow Michael Kitces or Alan, but people can relate to, let's say, a financial advisor. Let's say her name is Tamisha. Tamisha works with women in the high tech space. Okay, she's easily identifiable. It's a differentiator. She has experience there. She has a story on why she likes to serve in that area. She's relevant and experienced and passionate about serving that demographic. Passion sells, and she becomes easily referable. And you're there to serve and help others get their desired life results. So using the word serve over sell and looking at the mindset when you engage in a process, that you're just seeing if there's going to be a fit and if you are qualified really to serve what they want. And if not, I would suggest having other advisors that you could refer folks to, because not everybody will be a fit for you, and that's okay. The second point I want to discuss is knowing your purpose. Again, your role as expert, as guide, as accountability partner and champion. What role are you going to play, your purpose with your potential client? I'm a big fan of both Carl Richards and George Kinder's work. And there's a story that Carl Richards told once. He said that he interviewed a bunch of pilots once. And he said to them, before you fly, do you create a plan? And every single pilot that he interviewed said, oh my gosh, a meticulous plan every time, very detailed. He said, does it always go, does it always go as planned? Every single pilot said, never. It never goes as planned. So similarly, knowing your purpose, that as a guide or a pilot or a coach with your client, your prospect, and as you're outlining this to your prospect, being able to share that you are there to navigate the ups and downs in life. For instance, how about a pandemic or the other things that happen? So knowing your value and being able to share that, and doing your best to stay away from industry jargon. And I do a lot of role plays in my work with advisors at XYPN, and we do some cohort coaching, and it's you're immersed in acronyms and jargon that you've learned. And really it's how do you just speak simply to people who aren't familiar with those terminologies, assuring that the conversation is going back and forth. You're learning about them, you're sharing what's relevant, you're learning about them. So at the end, that I'll share with you the introductory meeting that I propose in my process, you can really make an assessment whether you're a fit or not. The next thing in terms of knowing your role and your value is really being able to communicate your intent well. with each piece of communication, every email, every Zoom interaction you might have or call. Why are you communicating? Why are you? It's key to know. Um, Communicating your expertise through questions, perhaps. Your questions help uncover challenges and life goals. You can then share your experience and propose solutions, but why are you communicating? What is your intent? And then, certainly, after each step in the sales process that I'll share with you, what is the follow up? What is the ask? What is the follow up? What is the communication about? And what is the next step? Always putting that next step certainly in your CRM, but knowing that there's a process because you're working toward an end. You don't want it to go on forever and ever. And then the fourth point is really guiding your prospect. Learning the art of intentional conversation over the idea of, in fact, get rid of this expression, if you will, the sales pitch. Consider losing that pressure filled sales jargon. Instead, you're having a conversation with people to see if there's a fit, to see if you can serve them, to see if your personality and expertise seem like a fit for them. And guiding your prospect, I really advocate when you begin to engage with a prospect once they've come in as a lead to frame your sales process. Frame your best practices, that why you have this process. Allude to the intent to take them to the next step. And so that they know ahead of time, after the second meeting, you're going to know whether you want to work together or not. And of course, if objections come up, that's just a healthy way for people to say, I need more information. And you can answer those. But anyhow, at the end, being able to ask them for the sale. So knowing your role and your value, replacing serve over sell, knowing your purpose, communicating your intent, and guiding your prospect through each step of the process. This is just a high level look at why a sales process again. Let's dive into this a little bit at this point. Your marketing, let me talk about marketing a minute. Of course, marketing and sales overlap, but we're having a great seminar next month on marketing. But your marketing should lead your prospect into the sales process, the sales funnel. A note on marketing. I work closely with our marketing coach. She's wonderful, Carolyn Dale Malay. We had a conversation about this, that marketing works to connect people to you and your firm. That's the main purpose. The marketing connects them to you. Oh my gosh, I didn't know that there was somebody who was an advisor who focuses on high tech. Marketing communicates what you do and then works to guide to a sales process. So let me just go over from a high level. We'll go into more detail in a little bit. But basically, the sales process that I've put together, the first step is a lead comes in, and the first job is to turn that lead into a prospect. And I call them a prospect once they are engaged, have signed up and are engaged in the introductory meeting. Then they're a certified prospect. But converting them might take a few emails. It might be sending some relevant information, a podcast, a fee-only article. But once they're signed up, great. The next step then is really creating expectations for that meeting, maybe sending an agenda. And I'm going to share an example of one in just a little bit. Sharing an agenda, maybe a little bit about, as I mentioned, fee-only article, or maybe a short questionnaire asking a few questions, not a boatload. I had one fellow I was working with, and he said, I get them in, they sign up for the meeting, but then I send the questionnaire and they ghost me. Well, I said, send me the questionnaire. And it was 100 questions, way too soon. 4 or 5 questions that qualify them, help you know about them a little bit. 100 questions is too many. It turned them off and people didn't continue. So creating expectations, maybe setting up the expectation that this is a 2-step meeting that you're going to have with the prospect to really know, and the agenda. And then we go into the introductory meeting. And I'm going to go over the details of that. The expectation is at the end is, hey, we have enough information about each other to say, let's go into a deeper dive so I can really learn about what's on your mind and see if I can help. I'm going to think about the few things that you shared. You know a little bit about me and my pricing now, and there's an agreement to go to the next step. Always getting it on the calendar. Follow up, maybe you send a follow up and send an article that is of a personal interest that they have. Maybe they really love glamping, and one of their goals with their money is to go glamping in the Northwest. So you send a personal article about glamping. Anyhow, you're setting up to the discovery meeting, which we'll talk about more, and then the agreement. So we'll go into that in a little bit. But I wanted to also mention to you, throughout this sales process, when I coach, there are 6 I call them 6 key tenets to confident selling that I always have advisors consider in whatever sales process they end up with. The really important to ask as you're going through any process. And the first thing is really knowing again why you're meeting, why the piece of communication that you're sending, being really clear and intentional. In the same way that if you're going to a networking and networking with folks, why are you there? What's the intent? Being very, very clear about your why in any meeting process or in your sales process. And then knowing who is coming to the meeting. You know, if you're meeting with a center of influence, it's one focus versus if it's a client. If you're at a networking, you know, differentiating between the two, or maybe just another colleague who maybe you share information with and you're helpful as business people. But knowing who you're working with is very key as you go through any process or communicate anything in a newsletter. Who is your audience? And then creating flow if you're in the sales process, that it's not just sharing a big monologue and usurping the conversation, but it's, as I shared, learning about them, sharing what's appropriate and relevant. And that leads us to being contextual. You're not sharing just everything in your practice. That's not relevant to everybody, but being contextual, matching behavioral style. I do a lot of work on that with advisors, which is just, what style, if you have somebody who's very direct and they like bullet points, how do you communicate with them there? Or if there's somebody who likes the story, maybe you send them a video overview of the meeting, just tuning in to make it easier for people to communicate with you and to hear what you have to say. Very, very important part of this sales process and sales. And then, of course, bringing closure. Now, that's not just closure as a client. It's maybe closure as, okay, they're not ready to move forward yet. You've tried everything to engage them to move forward. They're not. Then maybe you're closing them on, would you like to receive periodic updates? I've got great information in my newsletter. Or after the prospect fit introductory meeting, the close at that meeting is, do we want to move forward to a deeper engagement? I'm willing to take the time at no cost. Are we moving forward together? So it's always knowing what the close is, and the next step, putting that in your CRM, in your calendar, making sure that it's in the client or prospect's calendar too. So let's look at embracing this sales process that we're talking about. Why a sales process? We're going to continue there a little bit. One of the key reasons is it's the learning and the sharing piece. It's a framework to learn about your prospect and to share what you have to offer. It's organized. It has key steps. And within that, depending on who the person is, that's the art part. But the science part is the structure. You're going to get to a certain understanding, whether you're a fit or not by the end. But you have to go through the steps. You can't get there from here. You have to ask certain questions. You have to do certain listening. You have to share certain things about yourself. It's a framework to engage your prospect and share what you have to offer. And the next point in terms of why embracing a sales process, it really is the opportunity for you to determine fit really very clearly. And it's your leadership is selling your first sales process, showcasing your leadership by saying, this is a process that I engage in. It's a best practice. I do it with everybody. This is why, you have a first opportunity to showcase you as a leader and how you're going to lead them through a financial planning process. But first you start here. This is what we do. We don't veer from it because you want to respect their time and you want to certainly respect your time. Time is money in this case, and you want to make sure that you're efficient and effective at it. And it's a great opportunity. The two-step meeting process is a great opportunity to build rapport, to be able to think on some things that were shared at the first meeting and then follow up on them in the second one. And what else did I want to share there? Yeah, that's it. And then another key point with embracing a sales process, it's a great opportunity to give you time to showcase your value, leadership skills, skill sets that are appropriate to what the prospect needs that you might employ should you work together. And the importance of gaining information through asking great questions to determine fit. It's showcasing your value. So the more you ask those good questions, you can pull, okay, I've helped someone here. I have expertise here. Or to know that, wow, they're asking for things that are not in my wheelhouse. You can share relevant stories, showcasing high-level solutions, leveraging your passion. The reason you went into high tech, the reason you work with teachers, the reason you work with nonprofit. People love to work with people who are passionate and who love to serve. So it's leveraging your passion and your skill set around your niche group. So great way to showcase your value. And then lastly, as I shared, a framework for asking for the sale, valuing your time and the prospects, the opportunity to collect key conversational points to share your advice that, hey, based on this and this and the story I shared in my expertise there and what you're looking for here, gosh, I feel that we'd be a great fit. I'd like to move forward. Is there any reason why we might not move forward? So it's being able to build a case to go, gosh, based on everything you said, based on my expertise, we're a fit. And of course, if any objections come up, it gives you a great opportunity to see where someone is still unclear, and don't shy away from them and don't be afraid of objections. It's just an opportunity. You can always share, gosh, that is a great question. I want to think on that and I want to get back to you. I don't want to answer too quickly because I've got some real key ideas on that. So thank you for asking that. I'll get back to you. Very fair to say. So let's go through this sales process. Let me scoot over here a second. I'm going to go in a little more detail, and then certainly in Q&A, if there are any questions, we can go through this. Again, this is certainly customizable, but there are key points in each of these steps that I want to make sure to note. As we go through this, because some people say that, well, gosh, BB, do we have to go through all this if I'm just doing an hourly, trying to, get someone engaged in an hourly gig or just a project base? No, maybe you can have a longer first meeting and cover some of this in one meeting. However it works for you. I've just found that this process works for many, many advisors, and then they tweak it to make it their own. I created also 18 key templates to go with this, email templates and articles that you might send out and agendas and that sort of thing, that I suggest that we use. Well, a lot of folks use Wealthbox through XYPN, but I created a variety of templates that people can use and make their own, because you don't want to be recreating the same email again and again. You want to have a template response that you can customize for that person to save time, of course. But the first step, lead generation. The lead has come in and your job is to convert that lead to a prospect. Maybe they've come in through your contact form, maybe through a referral. You might send a fee only article. You might send uh, a Calendly invite. The objective is, and it might take more than one email, but you want to try to get them to engage them in learning more, and you might allude to your two-step sales process, and how that goes. But once they become signed up through a Calendly link to meet with you for a 30-minute meeting, the next step is creating expectations for what that meeting will look like. Sending an agenda, maybe asking a few key questions so you can hone in on what their issue might be or their background, just a little bit, not the 100 questions. Reminding them of the meeting and your excitement and your background a little bit. Maybe a podcast that you send out that talks about your service and why you do what you do or how you do it. And then the next step is the 30-minute prospect meeting, and conducting the meeting, sharing your intent, again, that it's a two-step process. Thank you for engaging. Happy to take the time, learning about them. They get an opportunity to learn about you. And I want to share here, here's just a sample of an agenda that you might send ahead of time. Prospect Fit meeting with Amanda Beardsley. First part of the agenda is just getting to know one another. And you should have, if this is a 30-minute meeting, you want to say that this is what we're talking about in this meeting, so that when they want to go off to more detail that is really part of a follow-up discovery meeting, you've already said what the meeting is about. And it's your job as the leader to say, hey, listen, I am so happy to dive into that in our next engagement, if we feel like, after we go through the key points that I sent you today, to see if it makes sense, because I want to make sure that I use your time well and that we are a fit. So if we'll continue with this and we decide that we are a fit, yes, let's go into that. So getting to know one another, meeting expectations, reiterating again, creating the structure, finding out about their past advisor experience. I know I had a really negative experience with several big firms I worked with before I chose an XYPN financial advisor. So I said, these are some things that I'm a little reticent about. I was sold some things I wasn't crazy about and didn't really serve my highest good. Tell me how fee only is different. So also an opportunity, why are they seeking an advisor now? Knowing a little bit high level goals and challenges. Okay, they've got some debt, they've got some issues here, they have a goal down there, early retirement, tax issues. So, is it in your wheelhouse? And then having an opportunity in this meeting to share high level about your firm. some different pricing structures, maybe your service calendar, that you can begin to see where they might fit in. So really asking that and having time for you to share what's appropriate, not everything in your firm, just what's appropriate to what they need to get to the point at the end of this 30-minute meeting. Maybe it takes less, maybe 5 minutes more, but you want to keep it within that scope. Questions. What are the questions? And then being able to say, potential next steps. So you've engaged with the prospect in the meeting. The next step is before they leave to get that next date on the calendar. If the agreement is, gosh, yes, I'd like to move forward. I can't wait. Getting it on the calendar, putting it in your CRM, and then sending them an email follow-up. This is what we covered. Thank you for your time. This is what I took away. Here's an agenda for the next meeting and some questions. I have a series of many, many different categories and deep dive discovery questions to ask that they might think about beforehand, giving them an expectation of that meeting and reminding them again that at the end, we're going to know whether we want to work together or not. And we'll take about an hour, maybe a little bit more, give yourself a cushion just in case it's going really well and you need a little more time. And that's moving into the discovery meeting. And then if you agree that, gosh, you know what, let's move forward. And I'm going to share it. Well, actually, let me share that right now. Your discovery meeting, setting up for the close. If you set an expectation and you keep referring to it, the close becomes much more natural. And for instance, after the first meeting, the introductory meeting, you might say, we just completed the first step of our 2-step process. Are you comfortable with what we've done so far? What else would be important to you? And, just again, finding out, feeling out where they are. Or after the discovery meeting, you might say, hey, we talked about being ready. That's key. We talked about being ready to make a decision after our second meeting. Do you have what you need to do so? All right, let me give you another example. This is a little bit different, more detailed response where you're taking some things from the conversation. You might share, well, as I shared, working with entrepreneurs is a niche that I adore, coming from a family of small business owners, my grandfather being my key mentor when I was running my small business before starting my RIA. I really do, Daryl, I understand the challenges that you're currently facing, as I shared, and I feel strongly that I can help you, not with just some of the tax strategies we discussed, similar to the situation I recounted regarding the other client I'm working with, but my service calendar touch points seem to resonate with areas you'd like to focus on to get you and your family past some hefty challenges and soon into the succession planning that you have in mind. I get it. I'm confident that I can help you get there and would be honored and delighted to do so, Daryl. Is there any reason why we wouldn't move forward together? And then waiting. And waiting. And then if there's a question, answering the question. But that's a very easy way to ask for, do you want to move forward together? Does it make sense with everything that we said? So the next step then would be, after the discovery meeting, is putting on the calendar. Great. We said that we want to do an ongoing engagement. We're going to look later maybe at me taking over some of your investments, but that's not necessary. I'd like to write up a brief proposal. And if we could go over that in 2 days, just get on a quick Zoom call. I want to make sure I'm correct in what I heard. I advise you to do that because I've heard stories of a lot of advisors sending out an agreement, an electronic agreement, too quickly, where there's still questions or a misunderstanding with the prospect, and then they were ghosted. So you want to keep those key touch points and buy-ins, that we want to make sure everything's right. After that, and we agree, I will send you an electronic contract, or I like to use the word agreement. It's less scary to people. Agreement. But let's go ahead, assuming that everything is fine with the agreement. Let's get the next Get Organized meeting on the calendar because I'm excited to get going towards your goals or past your challenges. But I will need to have it signed by Friday, the 15th to do that, just to work out the timing. So again, you're setting up the expectation and you're getting the buy-in early on. And so that people don't drag their feet. I hear a lot of advisors taking way too much time in following up and people not promising, keeping their promises. So the more you can do that, the better, but getting the closing. So in summary, we're to Q&A time already. This is what we covered very quickly in 40 minutes. 3 attributes to develop: being curious, listening well, asking great questions, and knowing your role and your value, replacing serve over sell, knowing your purpose, communicating intent, guiding your prospect, a big part of your role. And then honing your sales process, your own. You might take some things that I said. Maybe you have a process. You might want to tweak it. You might want to get with other advisors. This is what's so great about the XYPN community, getting other advisors together to see, okay, what's your best practice? And getting ideas on, hey, maybe I'll try that. I hadn't thought of that. I might be more successful that way. And then certainly in your process, considering who you're talking with, why you're meeting, having a flow in the process, but also a conversational flow, really building that synergy and rapport and that excitement to work together, being contextual, matching behaviors, and then, of course, asking for the close to get the client. So we're at Q&A time. Audrey or Isabel, I'll hand it over to you. Should I put my slides down or should I keep them up? What do you prefer?
Keep them up for now. I think a couple people want to circle back to some of your fabulous slides, but just as a reminder, we will be sending out this recording as well as all of the resources that we referenced in a follow-up email today. I know some people, I'm sure, frantically writing things down and trying to capture everything, but we'll get it into your inbox so you can review it on your schedule. But awesome presentation, BB. I always learn so much from you. Although I'm not in sales, it really does seem like it's about the conversation that you have with people, over this hard and fast rule of where to sell. And I so appreciate that approach to what you do. And I know people would pay a lot of money for this advice on the webinar today. So again, we just really do appreciate your time.
Of
Let me
course.
open up my Q&A.
Okay.
And we'll start at the top with Stephanie. She is an hourly planner and has a vibrant referral pipeline. From time to time, a prospect wants to have a call with me before scheduling a session. I like to do it when I have time, but often they're asking for information that was already in a short introductory letter. Other times they're telling me about their issues and it seems they expect me to advise them right then and there. How can I close the sale while saving the advising for the engagement?
Okay. And I'm sorry, this is Stephanie.
Yes.
Can I chat with Stephanie too?
I don't know because this is a webinar, not a meeting. I don't know if we can
Oh,
have them come on,
okay.
but maybe just kind of generally, if people are pushing you too soon for advice, how can you engage them as a client?
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, and I hope I can hit on what you're looking for, Stephanie. I appreciate the question. I think, and I share this a lot in my trainings that again, when you allude back to, hey, this is a process I have. This is the information that let me share the information that I sent out earlier. For us to move forward, here's some things I need to know, and this is what I can share. But that you're really saying that you have a process in place on how to engage, and if it looks like they're skipping a step, maybe to bring them back to, gosh, before we go there, um this is typically the process that I use. And I guess what I'm not clear about is the person just not feeling that they're getting enough information to be able to close with the information that you sent out. They're wanting to have a conversation first. I guess I can't ask her that. I'm not clear about that, because you might want to look, if you're getting a lot of pushback in that area, how much time is it taking to, have a short conversation that might get to the point better. The reason that I put the two-step into the process, which isn't for hourly necessarily, it could be, some people can do it in one meeting, that people were having a challenge in just being able to close without having a conversation first. I mean, if your services are so straightforward and you feel you don't need to, and you have great success with that, great. I would look at maybe what is the additional information that you need, or Q&A that you send out that helps navigate those questions that people are coming back and taking more time. How do you create the resources that they're asking for in a more automated or user-friendly way through an email or a podcast or FAQ or something like that, if you're not engaging one-on-one with their specific issues. I hope that helps. Can you put anything else that I might add to that, Isabel? Isabel, if I'm missing something?
well, we can circle back to see if Stephanie has some additional context, but I want to make sure we get to other folks'
Okay.
questions as well.
I hope that was.
Um, yeah, thanks, BB. Another person shared, I struggle with sharing my flat annual fee on my website. On one hand, I onboard clients that appreciated the transparency, but I also feel like I've lost potential clients too early before I can demonstrate the value brought through my two-meeting approach. What are your thoughts on transparent fee?
Yeah.
transparent fee disclosure on website?
I think it's key, and I've read and heard so much. Michael Kitts is so key, but you might also put phrasing in there that until I have, and kudos on the two-step process. I'd like to learn more if that's if it's working well for you. But I think that being able to share that until I chat with you, I won't have a really clear idea of which part of the service model would best fit your needs. And being able to allude to stories too on your website to substantiate your value and your pricing or the investment they make in you, that over time, that people have met their goals and exceeded their goals in having a guide. So being able, of course you can't at this point share testimonials, but being able to allude to the results that you people tend to get in working with you, and through having a process, I think is helpful. But I know in my former business, and it really works with a lot of financial planning planners, that just alluding to, we might recommend an hourly for you for the situation. I won't know till I speak with you. Or we might move into more of an ongoing that could be of greater benefit to you, but let's chat and then I'll be able to recommend what I think is best. So maybe putting the pricing, and then, again, that we won't know until we chat, but we've got some varieties and we can start by putting our toe in the water, see how we work together. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Vivi. Someone else brought up handling rejection from prospects. I imagine as an entrepreneur that comes up from time to time. It can kind of throw you off in terms of just like the self-doubt and the anxiety. So what advice do you have for those people?
Yeah, rejection is part of it. I started as an actress in the performing arts, and boy, did I learn about rejection. Yeah, it is part of it, but getting curious about it. And I think I always, when I'm doing coaching, I always, at the end of whatever you did, to really outline, what did I do well? I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this. What could I improve upon? Okay, I wasn't as clear here. I kind of stumbled there. I wasn't as good. Really knowing that this is a process. Of course, there's going to be no's. Even being able to go back, and I've done this with clients in the past. Hey, I didn't win your business. That's fine. But I would like to understand, if you don't mind taking a moment, what wasn't a fit for you? And please, I appreciate your honesty. It'll help me learn and grow as an advisor, because my key goal is to serve people at a very high level. So I think just, looking at the things that you've done well, asking for feedback when you can, and getting some feedback from some other colleagues. And we do a lot of that at XYPN, so that hey gosh, when you did that, that was a little bit of a turn off and it felt salesy. We do a lot of that. So if you can engage with colleagues to get some feedback on your delivery and how you're coming across, it is so helpful. Yeah. And just know that part of it is not everyone's going to be a fit, and you're going to get better at it. And you have a service that people need, and just go next. Next.
I really like that. If it's okay, I'd like to add two things, just because what you said really got me thinking. And
Sure.
one, you mentioned having that team, and how at XYPN we bounce ideas off each other and share and ask for constructive feedback, which I think is absolutely key. A lot of advisors I know, especially the very successful ones, are part of mastermind groups, also known as accountability groups. So having that peer colleague support is really key for those down days. And also just your out of work support, whether that's friends and family, a good exercise routine, hobbies that take yourself out of work. I think those are really important as well. And the second thing, someone shared with me shared this with me a couple of years ago, and it's something I've done since, is keep a smile file for yourself. Any kind note that you receive, friendly email, if someone reaches out and just says like, "You're awesome, I'm so glad that you became my financial advisor," tuck those away and reread them as often as it takes.
No, I
Just
agree. I
knowing
think
that.
that's great advice. In one course I do called Client Acquisition Launch Lab, we would do live learnings, and then I'd have individual coaching sessions. Well, I decided that it was more beneficial to put together cohorts of 4 or 5 people from the bigger class. And
Yes.
wow, they created so, I encourage you to do that with other advisors, out in the world. I can share a few things, but I'm one person. But together they would create these cohorts, and such great valuable relationships that happen after the class. So if you can do that in your network of professionals and advisors, I really recommend it. Yeah.
Definitely. Let's see. John asked about what should an advisor expect in terms of how many leads move through each step of the process. For example, how many set up the first meeting, how many set up the second meeting, and finally, how many become clients?
Great question, John. I would really encourage you to look at our benchmarking study that's available, I believe, Isabel, to everybody. The 2020 benchmarking study, and it kind of looks at where people are and gone through some of the marketing coaching and all that to really be able to track what's working well and was a difference made. Oh, it says my internet connection is unstable, so I hope I stay on.
So
Sorry.
sorry to jump in, BB. I was wondering if it was mine or yours. If you don't mind repeating, you went silent for me. I don't know if someone wants to drop in the chat if you went silent for everyone, but we do still see your picture, and I am hearing your audio now.
Okay. Okay. I'm sorry. We're at the will of Zoom and internet services. Yeah, I just said that if you haven't looked at our benchmarking study yet, I encourage you to look at our 2020 benchmarking study. It really shares a lot of how many percentage of leads that turn to prospects, prospects that turn to closing, how many qualified prospects, and part of my training I do on tracking what's important. How is your marketing working? How is your sales process working? And actually, I had shared that I want to work on with our new director, Corey, on people who have gone through my sales programs. How are those statistics changing in that they have a sales process, in that they're having better conversations? So yeah, I'd encourage you to look at the benchmarking study, John. I think it's a really great question. It's wonderful that you're asking that, and you'll get a benchmark idea of what's happening for other people. And I
Definitely.
hope we'll have more and more information on that too as people go through different trainings.
I think so. I think we absolutely will. Now, once we have started the art of sales and we're working on closing all of our wonderful clients, how do we ask them for referrals? Is
Ah,
that at the beginning of the relationship, middle, after you've worked with them for a number of years?
yeah, that's a great question too. All these good questions. Referrals. I'll never forget a business guy that I was working with. I had one appointment with him, and he asked me for a referral. I thought, this is too soon. I don't even know if I like you yet. I don't know if you're. This wasn't a financial advisor. It was another business. I think that after you've worked with somebody and they've expressed that they're happy with what you're doing, that's a great time to engage in asking for a referral, or you might even change the languaging, because some people are like referral, they get kind of their hair stands up on the back of their neck. Just being able to reiterate back, gosh, Marcy, I'm really delighted that we've made such progress together, and I love serving people, and it's been a wonderful working with you. Um, I would like to be considered as a resource if you know of anybody else who you think could benefit from some of the services that I'm able to provide and how I've helped you. And then really set up for yourself what that process would look like. You know, are you going to come back to her in 2 weeks and she has some names, or is she going to refer and have somebody contact you? Or is she sharing with the person that she had success with you? And would it be all right for you to contact them? Whatever process you put together and that you are comfortable with, definitely asking that other person permission if you're going to reach out to them. You're making sure you have a business process for it. Like anything, you've got it in your workflow follow-ups. And if you are engaging with somebody, being able to share with Marcy the process of it. Maybe sending, I heard from compliance, you can send a small gift, nothing big, or a thank you note. But really finding a time when you know that they're super, super happy, and creating a repeatable process that is really respectful of the person who's helping you, because they're in essence being your sales and marketing arm. In my former business, we did a lot of referring like this, and I had a set process and accountability too. Um, but for sure, I hope that helps. Very odd
Yeah.
not being able to hear if it's resonating. So thank you for that
um,
question.
well, it's resonating here, and I'm sure it is with all of our attendees today. Michael Kitsis and Carl Richards on their, I think it was one of their more recent podcasts, talked about referrals specifically. So great timing. I think Audrey has that link if she wants
Oh,
to
yes,
drop it into
yes, yes.
the
Excellent.
chat.
Thank you for
Yeah.
so many good. I mean, gosh, you could live and breathe Kitsis and, to help run your business. There's so many
Yeah.
good
This
podcasts.
past year, I've really for a number of reasons, been disappointed that I haven't been traveling and commuting as much, because that's when I listen to my podcast.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Let's take a question from Thomas. He asks, are there any suggestions to mitigate prospects trying to get some free advice from some of these initial sales meetings? I've experienced in the past where prospects ask several questions with the guise that they intend to come on board and then they ghost you or keep leading you on.
Yeah. That's a tough one, because you want to be able to share an overview of some things that you do. But I think that if you have a succinct two-step process and with the expectation that want to make a decision, because again, it's respectful of their time, but it's respectful of your time. Your main job isn't being a salesperson, or I don't want it to be. So if you can be efficient, but I think being being able to say, those are things, those are aspects that we would engage in once we decided to work together. From a high level, I would suggest I would probably do some things in this area, this area, this area. And I think you've got to discern as the advisor where it's too much information. And even being able to say, this is what I do for my living, and I love to do it, and I know I can help people. So I want to make sure we go through a process to see if we'd be a fit. If they're a do-it-yourselfer, why are they looking for your advice? And what part do they want to do themselves if it's their investments, but they need financial planning help? To discern that in the meetings rather quickly. Because if it's not a fit, remember that first meeting, if you can get to the right questions and discern, they might not be a fit for you. They might want you, but they're not a fit for you. And then I think always having someone to refer them to is a very generous and gracious way to say, this isn't where my time is best spent. Not that you say it that way, but just that you've somebody who you think would be a better fit, because you don't want somebody wasting your time. And I'm not an advocate of uploading any kind of financials before the agreement is signed. You might get a few, okay, I've got this debt, I've got these things, that they can share a little bit. Now, again, people do it in different ways. There's some people who are very successful in doing a first plan and not charging for it, but to garner the business. You have to decide what's best for you, but I'm not a big fan of giving away a lot of your time for free. That's not what you got all the training for and your expertise. So they just might not be a fit. And then just, move on. Next
Thanks,
person.
Phoebe.
Yeah.
I think we have some time to circle back with Stephanie. She did add some additional context. I'll reread her original question and then add some things that she mentioned.
Thank you.
Again, she's an hourly planner and with a vibrant referral pipeline. From time to time, a prospect wants to have a call with me before scheduling a session. I like to do it when I have time, but often they're asking information that was already in the short introductory letter. But other times they're telling me about their issues and it seems they expect me to advise them right then and there. How can I close the sale while saving the advising for the engagement? These people who are talking to her want advice. They don't know why they want to speak with her. They just want to make sure she's okay.
I guess I would go back again to the information that you're sending out, and how robust your website is, or your Q&A about, this is typically how I work. If you see that, the different things that I cover here, if that sounds like a fit for you, that you're giving them enough information. I'd be really keen on what other questions do they have to ask. Um, and and that there's certain questions that maybe they want to pose that should be more in the hourly session, that a lot of times questions that people want to go into are more into the planning, and once we decide to work together, and again, you might have that, you might even charge then for a first fit meeting, if that's more comfortable with you, Stephanie. If you want to have that first meeting, maybe it's just a certain amount of time, and you charge a fit fee, and you're not giving a lot of advice. It's just, this is what we'll cover, this is what I want to go over to see if we're going to move forward together. Maybe you set up another step for those people who can't come in through the or other process that sounds like it's working rather well. Again,
Stephanie shared in the chat, well said, thank you. Really appreciate your
oh,
thoughts.
my pleasure, Stephanie. Good luck.
You're welcome. Or you're welcome.
Years.
Here I am facilitating the conversation. But Stephanie, it was good to have you on, and I appreciate everyone asking questions. I do think we have one more, and I know Anthony reached out and mentioning he submitted his question ahead of time. We do try to balance the questions that we get submitted, and of course the ones that are shared live. So Anthony, if you could get that in, I would love to be able to ask BB the question to round out our hour together. I think one final thought I have is something BB shared from with me and with the XYPN team when she first started. BB, what's the hardest thing to sell?
Something you don't believe in.
Yes. You said that one day, just not long after you started, and it has stuck with me since then. And I love that because this profession is so, it takes so much of yourself. And you need to be so vulnerable with people. Finances are a very tricky topic, and just I think it kind of goes back to that taking care of yourself, that confidence aspect.
Well, and part of with some of the questions too, the referrals or the guidelines in how much you give away or not give away. It's all creating those boundaries that work because you are there to serve. And if you are wasting time in a situation that isn't serving you, maybe just the other person, then you can't. You both have to be taken care of. And I think that if you're engaging with the right people and saying no to the people who aren't the best fit, you can get to the people who you can make the biggest impact. But that's being respectful of your time, and also all these hats you're wearing now as an entrepreneur. As you grow, where do you outsource? And that's one thing I learned in my former business till I finally had quite a few employees who were running it without me. And not that I'm suggesting you do that, but you might want to offshoot some things and outsource some marketing, or have another planner at some point. It's exciting.
Definitely.
I love the whole entrepreneurship world. It's challenging. My hats goes off to you. It's not for everybody, but just know and wake up every morning that you are there doing really, really important things and making financial planning available to people, not just wealthy people. And I'm so excited and thrilled to be a part of this dynamic movement. So appreciate
Absolutely.
you
I
all.
realize we are at the top of the hour. I promised someone in the chat that we'd get to their question, but Anthony, I think I'm going to have to email you after we say our goodbyes. I sincerely apologize, but thank you so much for joining us for this hour. We are curious if this was helpful for you or not, so we'll drop a quick survey into the chat if you don't mind taking time to fill that out. Let us know if this was helpful. And join us next month. I'm going to be on with Lindsay White, who is our wonderful email marketing manager. And so, yeah, sales and marketing, what a way to kick off 2021. It's going to be a strong year. Thanks, everyone. And thanks,
Good stuff.
BB.
Thank you, Audrey. Bye bye.